On Fridays in the afternoon.
Today on the News and Why It Matters, Joe Biden, he had an oopsie, another firearm incident at Walmart, and Hollywood is making an adorable movie, you guys, about liberals hunting deplorables. Yay! All coming up next on the News and Why It Matters. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, joined today by Stu Bergier, Mr. Pat Gray, and Jason Howerton. Thank you guys for being here. Let's start with Joe Biden, who I realize is getting up there in age, but he keeps having some really racist remarks.
Racist-y? Would you say slightly racist-y?
Racist-ish.
Yeah.
And the latest one, let's go ahead and watch, and then we'll get into discussion.
And the other thing we should do is we should challenge these students. We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Oh. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. Not really, but think how we think about it.
He covered it really well with the Oscar Mayer commercial, though. Fat kids, skinny kids, kids who climb on rocks. Even kids with chicken pox are just as talented as white kids. Come on.
So it was a very awkward pause. It's like you could feel it in his throat.
He knew he did it.
He knew he did it.
Which is, I guess, something, right? I mean, it's better than not knowing that you did it. Yeah, that was not a good moment. He did try to cover it awkwardly immediately after. I love the one person in the audience that real big applause. Yeah, white kids are.
Can we watch it one more time?
I missed that part. Yeah, listen to one person that gets really excited when he says it.
And the other thing we should do is we should challenge these students. We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. Not really mean it, but think how we think about it.
That's not what you're supposed to do in that moment.
That's great.
Yeah, it was not a good moment. I think there's an issue here with Joe, and I don't think honestly that proves that he's a racist. It just proves that his brain is moving at some different like two cars in two different lanes, and the mouth and the brain are going at two different paces. They can't they don't line up at all.
Well, I'm just really glad that they're giving him the benefit of the doubt like they would Trump. Trump accidentally said that.
That's evidence of white supremacism if Donald Trump says it. I mean, seriously, that's what they would say.
It is. Well, Pat, but he does have kind of a history of making some pretty racist remarks when it comes to African Americans.
This first sort of clean, attractive African American that's well spoken. That's a storybook, man. Not to mention you can't go into a 7-Eleven in Delaware without some kind of Indian accent. I mean, it's not the first time. It's really not the first time for Joe, but he gets a pass because it's just Joe being Joe.
Oddly, the one thing they really use against him in the Democratic primary for his racism is his support of the crime bill, which actually I don't think at all proves his racism. It actually was did a lot of good things. It wasn't a perfect bill, but it did actually a lot of good things, and it's a thing that, of course, he's getting criticized most for as a Democratic primary contestant, which is typical. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like the thing that's important about Biden is not any of his views. It is not any of his slip-ups like this. There's one thing to watch with Joe Biden as far as politics goes, which is the only reason he's winning right now is because people think he can beat Donald Trump. And if he has more of these moments where it looks like he's slipping, where it looks like he's not all together, where he looks like he might gaffe himself into a loss against Trump, the Democrats will bail on him. I think they'd like someone with more socialist policies than Biden, but if he can beat Trump, they're fine with it. He is giving them reason to believe he can't. And if he gives them enough of those reasons, these things will start snowballing, and that's how he loses this election.
Do you know how bad Trump would smack him around in a debate?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just just mentally, it's just he's not all there anymore. I mean, it's a sad part of life. Well, I'll be there soon enough.
Jason, you mentioned how Trump would be treated in the media if he had made that comment. But we live in this backwards world where, like you said, Joe Biden gets a pass for actually saying something like that. Trump denounces the KKK, like is very clear on everything, has never, to my knowledge, made any of those comments, and he's already a white supremacist.
He literally said the words, "We have to condemn and defeat white supremacy." And Joe Biden goes the next day and says he hasn't condemned white supremacy. It's like it's a different world we're living in. And then somebody like Joe, he can say something like that. Trump can lower flags to half-mast, and he's signaling to neo-Nazis because it's 8-8. It's like, it's just a different planet that the two sides get treated.
It's really embarrassing. And it comes to one central thing I think that goes on with the media all the time, which is they consider themselves the arbiter of what people really mean, right? So Joe Biden can say something that sounds pretty darn racist, but he doesn't mean it. He's old. He's old. He makes mistakes. It's just Joe being Joe. The same thing with, I can't remember which squad member it was, the Ringo of the squad, that one, when she said, was it Presley? Or it was Presley or Tlaib, I can't remember. It could have been Harrison.
You're not sure.
Okay. It was Harrison or Ringo. And she said, I think it was Presley, because she said, we don't need any more brown faces without brown voices. And it's like, well, if Trump came out and said, we don't need any more white faces that aren't white voices, I mean, he would be impeached the next day. But they are assigning a positive motive, essentially, to Presley, where they don't assign it to Donald Trump. And the same thing, I think, happens, with Biden right now. You're seeing this with all the Trump accusations of racism. Anything that can further the idea that he's a racist is used because they already know he's a racist in their minds. In their minds, they know. They've already assigned him the racist intent. So everything proves what they already know. With Joe, they know he's a little slow and he makes mistakes. So everything proves that. It's nothing to worry about. Being able to assign that intent is an immense power. It's a power to shape the entire election. Because if you just say, well, we know what he means every time, it's a way to excuse and accelerate the criticism of other candidates. It really is an amazing. We saw that with
like AOC and Mitch, right? She determined boys will be boys is what he meant, right? Like she interpreted it herself and told America what he actually meant, even though it's not what he said.
Well, and that was, I think, largely in part to the Daily Beast. Wasn't it the Daily Beast? The Daily Beast said Mitch McConnell's team essentially said boys will be boys.
Essentially.
That's a stretch.
There you go. There's the media doing it. There's AOC doing it. And that's the reality that we live in now. They get to determine what is in your heart.
Right. Pat, tell us about there was another firearm incident at a Walmart in, where was it?
This one
was it Missouri?
Was in Missouri, yeah, Springfield, Missouri. A guy went in with AR-15 and fully loaded. He had body armor on, he was wearing fatigues, and he had 100 rounds of ammo. And then he just got a shopping cart, started tooling around Walmart. This is 4 or 5 days after the shooting. I don't know. It looks like he's just trying to prove a point that I can open carry in a public place if I want to. What an asinine thing to do so quickly after 22 people lost their lives in El Paso. This is not the time for your point to be proven. This is not the time to take your own life and others and put it on the line. See, he could have been shot in the head by a security guard, an off-duty police officer. I mean, the guy is fortunate that he's still alive.
There was an off-duty firefighter who was armed and who held him at gunpoint. He could have easily been killed.
Yeah, he could have.
And he was recording it with his camera. So clearly, we'll probably see this footage on YouTube at some point, hoping to go viral or whatever else. I'm not going to watch it. I implore other people not to watch it. That's not the kind of attention-seeking behavior we want to reward. But everything looks to me like this was an open carry stunt, trying to exploit the moment in time where this is a hot button issue. And I think it's just dumb. And this is why I think open carry is just a bad idea. I don't want to ban it. I don't want government to tell people they can't open carry. But if you are serious about your gun rights and you're serious about defending yourself or your family, conceal carry. You don't want anybody knowing you have a gun on you, whether it's an attacker or somebody who would want to do you harm, who knows you have a gun on your hip, grabbing it off your hip. Who knows what could happen if people can see you openly carrying And not to mention, it's just, it gets people on edge. It makes you the center of attention, right? Like if you want to be ready and prepared, you don't want everybody looking at you, knowing what you have and what you could possibly do. It's just, I think it's just dumb.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Always,
yeah.
right?
And it's a tough one too. Like let's just say this played out a little bit differently. Let's say the off-duty firefighter sees this guy walking down this, sees it, and thinks it's going on, and just shoots the guy in the head and kills him. Like, what's the outcome of that? In real terms, like constitutionally, as we stand here by the rules, he didn't do anything wrong, and you know, shooting someone in the middle of a Walmart because they're carrying a gun is not cool. Like that's not okay. But I mean, I think
you and your high standards.
I know.
Okay.
High hurdles to clear for everyone. But I mean, I think honestly, the average American would look at that and just be like, well, I would have done the same thing, right? Like he's lucky he didn't get his head blown off.
Think about it like this: the manager pulled the fire alarm, right? So there's just as somebody who's done training, like firearms training, there's a lot of noise, a lot of chaos happening in that moment. If you're not, thankfully, this guy seemed to be trained and didn't overreact. But in that moment, a lot of people could have panicked. Just a regular Joe who maybe doesn't do a lot of training could have panicked and shot the guy easily. So.
Easily, and I think honestly, the American people would say. Probably go, I mean, I don't know. Maybe does he?
Dumb thing to do.
You shouldn't have been doing that. And like, that is partially a problem. Like, and I think to defend a little bit the people who do these types of things, there is a legitimate point encapsulated here, which is our society is so weird with guns that, and we so often don't. Push back on it. You know, it's so often, every place bans them, but we don't do anything. And to so many, these things are so foreign. I mean, especially I grew up in the Northeast. Like, it was completely foreign to me. I don't ever remember even seeing a gun when I was a kid. It was not part of the culture. So there is an argument there of like, people need to be more educated as to like just seeing a gun isn't evil. This is intentionally trying to incite a reaction. You're trying to make a video or whatever he's trying to do. It's a really terrible idea. And I honestly, I don't know, what would you do? You wouldn't get a murder charge for that. Like maybe you get manslaughter or something if you shoot someone. I would assume that you'd get in some sort of trouble. I have no idea how that plays out legally. Yeah. I think in the court of public opinion though, I think people would be like, look, don't freaking carry giant weapons in there 2 days after a massacre and expect nothing to happen to you. Right. And that's not right. But I think that would be the normal reaction of the everyday person.
I think there's also Jason, I'll let you speak to this, a larger concern that conservatives, because we are so geared toward facts and principles and laws on the books and following them, I feel like there's a concern that conservatives don't care, right? We don't care that people are being shot. We don't care that there are, illegals being ripped apart from their families. We just saw in these latest ICE raids. There were a lot of conservatives that I saw who were somewhat gleeful about, children crying because their parents had just been taken away. And it's like we are missing an opportunity, some of us are missing an opportunity to show that we do care, we have a heart. It's just a different approach. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I laid out a thing, I'm a dad. I went through a hard thing with my son recently. So I have these emotions about this issue and seeing stuff like that, it bothers me, right? But I'm not I don't want to make decisions out of emotion. I don't want to do things that don't make sense. So I laid out build a wall, prosecute criminals who are here illegally, get them out of the country, and then find a way for parents who have no criminal history to have a pathway somehow. That was my thing. It seems pretty reasonable to me. It was people are furious. I'm are we is
what
it
part of that? Is it the last part?
The last part, right.
Figure it out after.
Right, figure it out. So it's I feel like we're retreating to the place that the left is on abortion. So extreme to where you can't, they want just all abortion, no matter what. Even post-birth. Don't even tell me, once the baby's born, don't tell me what to do. And I do feel like we're missing an opportunity. Texas, I think is a perfect example of that. I think if it was done right, the Latino community in Texas is so geared to be conservative, religious, they're hardworking. There is a community of that culture that would, I think, be a great addition to the conservative movement. And I do think we're missing that opportunity just by being so stubborn and not finding any common ground at all. or compromise at all. Like, and I'm still talking about like we need to secure it first. How does that happen? And then go from there. But it's a tough sell to get anywhere when you can't even get like even half a step off.
You're not allowed to have sympathy anymore.
Right, no sympathy.
You're just supposed to just share statistics and.
Part of that problem, though, is they haven't done the first part, and they refuse to do the first part.
Yes.
And so until you do the first part, we don't want to hear the rest of it. Yeah. Do the first part. Stop the flow. It's just like if you have a plumbing problem at home, you're not going to start fixing the piping until you fix the leak, and then you can deal with the other things like the mess on the floor.
Why did you gesture at me when you said mess on the floor?
Well, it just was a natural reaction.
That hurts.
All right, back in a minute.
Kind of messy and
then it's
people not really liking you all.
That's true. That's a good point.
It is a really good point.
I don't know what you're making on television.
That was an insightful point. Stu, tell us about this new movie coming out. It sounds amazing.
Yes, The Hunt. Actually, I think it looks great. And I saw they did a bunch of ads for it during the Democratic debates, and I was tweeting like I'm all in on this. It looked to me like it's the type of movie I really like. And it's a movie about basically people wake up in a field, they don't know what they're doing there, and all of a sudden bullets start flying. They realize essentially they're on the wrong side of a hunt. There's a human hunt going on, and some evil rich people are hunting them in a field. And there's been
sounds like the type of movie that you like. You said
totally. I love stuff like this. This comes from the same company that made The Purge, and I love the Purge movies. I go see like all of them the night they come out. I think they're great. Because I don't know. It's a crazy sort of scary movie, but it's intense, and it has like sort of a. Like The Purge is the same way. It has like sort of a subtext of politics in it, but kind of the world gone crazy, right? Like it's a movie. You go for the extremes that you're living. This is a fantasy. So this movie is about. It's been getting a lot of the reporting on it. I think has been misleading in that like they are trying to make this into this thing where conservatives get really mad at it, right? Because what they are doing is the people in the field are. Referred to apparently as deplorables. There's criticism. I don't think it's like about Trump per se, but there's allusions to essentially the people in the field are the red staters, right? And the liberal elites are the blue staters. And
didn't they? I read a report that they were going to name it.
The initial name was red state versus blue state or something like that. Yeah. I don't know if that report's accurate, but that's what I read that as well. The thing because I keep seeing conservatives getting upset about it, and I can understand when it's presented that way, but let's take a step back for a minute. This is a fantasy movie, right? And there's no movie I can ever think of in my entire life in which these two, you have one group who has kidnapped a bunch of people, put them in a field, started shooting at them, and the other people who are struggling for their lives. The heroes in this movie are the red staters. The people in the field are the ones you're rooting for the whole time.
Hold on.
This never happens in Hollywood. We should be thrilled over this.
What if Bernie Sanders goes to that movie? Who's he rooting for?
That's true. I don't know.
That's what I want to know.
That's a good point. I'm sure some people in the audience will be like, I hope they really kill all those people in the field that are innocent. But like generally speaking, I mean, like, this is there's some similarities to like a movie like Hostel, for example. I don't know how much you guys are into horror films. I know Pat's a huge Hostel fan. You were more of a Hostel 2 guy, I know, but
do you watch it like every night or every other?
Almost every night. Okay. But I mean, this is a movie, right, where these innocent people go to a hostel and they wind up getting tortured and killed by evil rich people who want to have the pleasure of killing people. Well. No one in the movie is like, I love the people who are going to kill all the people in the hostel. You're rooting for the hostile people. This is the same situation. The people in the field, for once in our freaking lives, the people who are the good guys in this movie are actually the red staters. And I think like that's actually something to be kind of excited about.
Well, yeah, the rich elite.
Yeah, but no one's rooting for them.
Going to be the people you root for?
No.
Right? They're not going to be. They never are.
In every other movie I think we've all ever seen, it's like the rich elite are the evil businessmen who want to go kill people. Yeah. With one big major exception from recent history, and it also came from the same company, Blumhouse, which was Get Out. Get Out is a movie in which it is absolutely overt about the fact they are criticizing white liberals and their racism. They're basically the couple, the people who were killing all the black people.
They voted for Obama.
That was their excuse. They're like, well, we can't be racist. We voted for Obama. You're killing black people, right? Like, so and I'm, Blumhouse is not a conservative outfit by any means, but they are willing, I think, to take the story to the best place possible to make it the most interesting possible. So some of the stories have had liberal, plot lines before, and this one I think though quite clearly is a conservative hero movie. Like for whatever reason, they have put the red staters, the Trump supporters, in a position that you have no choice but to root for them. And that is I think something we haven't seen in a while. It's certainly not common from Hollywood. And so I think complaining about it, from the conservative perspective is a little bit sort of misled.
Yeah. Well, what about just the hypocrisy, though, that, liberals in Hollywood are over here trying to tell us that conservatives are gun nuts and all this, and then they put out movies all the time that show people killing each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's...
they're glorifying it, right?
There's always... We talked about this...
Let me clarify, because I don't want pushback from viewers. I'm not saying they don't have the right to make these movies. I'm not saying we shouldn't go... I'm just saying their hypocrisy.
Yeah, we've talked about this from Hollywood before. A lot of times they try to say that, look, we don't have violent video games and violent movies don't influence people. But when we wanted to get smoking out of the movies, we made sure to take cigarettes out and we influenced them there. And we put a lot of environmental messages in movies so people understand that that's the right way to be. I think there is, there is always going to be hypocrisy from any, Hollywood studio that's trying to make political messages and change people's minds in these movies. I think the better way to do it is chase the story. What's the best story? I don't mind, I've seen a lot of movies that have liberal, underlying themes that I've really liked. It's not going to change my view on a topic, but if that's the best way the story goes, it's the best way the story goes. And I think the less that we try to have this, this overarching idea that we have to change everybody's minds on who they're voting for with these movies and just make the movies freaking good, that's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute. I'm just Trump uses the word infested, and he inspired. Before we go, I'm sure all of you have probably heard about the really sweet and adorable drag queen storytime hour it's sweeping the nation, amazing things happening in our public libraries. You will not believe what drag queens are now teaching our children. But you got to go to Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered on YouTube to find out what it is. Parents, you're going to lose your minds over this one. And don't forget, we've got Overtime coming up next, as always. I'm trying to find a delicate way to tease what we have coming up. You guys remember Jessica Yaniv?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, there's an update to that story.
No.
Oh, yes. And it is so good.
Oh, okay, good. That's something.